much resistance to reopening, given what we're seeing in Europe right now?
Well, I think it's stunning because that is what you would do if you follow basic public health practice. So there's sort of a perception that lockdowns and contact tracing is something that the scientific community is behind. And there are some who are advocating that. But among my colleagues who are infectious disease technologists, most are in favor of a risk-based strategy or an age-based strategy where we protect the elderly and other high-risk groups while the younger will resume lives more or less normally. And that's what Scott Atlas has been advocating, and which we now put out a declaration, the Great Barrington Declaration, and we put that out this morning. And there are already over 500 medical and public health scientists who have co-signed, as well as over 500 practicing medical professionals.
Wow. So okay. All right. I want people to understand that. I'm sorry to interrupt, Dr. Koldorf. I want people to understand this. Now, we're talking to three of the top epidemiologists. I know you guys are modest, but in the world, okay, the three of you. And you're all three saying this approach of locking down, rolling lockdowns does not work. And that is what is happening around the world and what, I'm sorry, is being planned if Biden wins the presidency. And Dr. Fauci actually spoke tonight on CNN and addressed this national strategy, which should be in place. And I'll let Dr. Gupta and Bhattacharya respond to it. Let's watch.
We need to flood the system with testing, surveillance testing, getting out there, getting into the community and finding out what the level of infection is in the community and doing it on a broad scale. Whether you do it in schools, whether you do it in colleges, whether you do it in factories, that's what we need to do.
Dr. Gupta, I want to go to you on that. So is broad surveillance testing in schools and universities, and I guess everywhere, is that really the way to proceed?
I don't think so. I think that's a very inefficient use of very limited resources that we have in that regard. And not only, when I say limited, not only do I refer to what we have at our disposal, but also I'm talking about how much we should invest in that process. Because what we really want to do is protect the vulnerable. So it makes every bit of sense to me that we would take those resources and use them to develop smart strategies to protect the vulnerable. And what's interesting here is by not testing those who are not vulnerable and allowing them to carry on with their lives, which testing frankly impedes, you actually allow that population to build up a level of immunity, which in turn protects the vulnerable. So it's a kind of win-win. Don't test them, let them live their lives, and let them build up the immunity that will eventually protect the vulnerables. In the meantime, and I stress this is not going to take forever, it will take 3 months maybe. We've been able to observe the epidemic unfold in several parts of the world, and I think we can guess safely, whatever that might mean, but that 3 months is probably, maybe 6, sufficient time for enough immunity to accumulate in those sectors of the population such that the vulnerable could resume normal lives. In the meantime, we try and protect them the best we can, and we use our testing capacity to achieve that.
Dr. Bhattacharya, today, it was all day long, okay? I heard individual after individual, many of them medical professionals, scoffing at this idea of herd immunity or reaching a level of immunity that means generally you can open up everything and go on with life as we had it before, even understanding the danger of the virus. What about that and the Swedish experiment that everyone ridiculed? And even President Trump was kind of poo-pooing Sweden early on.
No, I think denying herd immunity is like denying gravity. Gravity exists and herd immunity exists. Many infections and viruses and pathogens are controlled in the population by herd immunity. Even if you have a vaccine, it's still herd immunity that protects people against the virus or the pathogens. So denying herd immunity it's like denying biology. It's just not right. The question isn't just about herd immunity, really. Its question is, how do you safely get there? The focused lockdown strategy that we're proposing, where you protect the vulnerable and let people live their lives, will get us there more quickly with less loss of life and less damage to other aspects of public health that get ignored, I think, by these doctors that are essentially denying basic facts about biology. Instead, with this focused protection, you protect the vulnerable, you quickly build up immunity in the rest of the population, and that will save lives. Just one very important thing here is that the lockdown itself is not costless to life, and if you think about it, people have delayed cancer treatment. They've delayed going to the doctor because of even with severe heart disease. Parents have not vaccinated their children. There's going to be an increase in breast cancer rates, prostate cancer rates, because of basic screening hasn't been done. I think the lockdown costs will, even in the short and intermediate term, have larger and longer health consequences for the population than the focused protection plan, which both will reduce COVID deaths and also address many other public health foci that we just ignored.
But that's essentially, Dr. Kulldorff, what the administration has been doing. I mean, focusing on protecting the vulnerable, urging states to open up. New York, New Jersey, California, some other states in New England extended their severe COVID restrictions. Some of them are going back into rolling more targeted lockdowns. But to what end? Like, what is New York going to achieve by beginning to close down sectors of the economy again? Dr. Kulldorff.
Yeah, so different states pursue different strategies here. And what, for example, New York has been doing is to protect low-risk college students and low-risk professionals who can work from home, while older working-class people have to work. So they are building up it's the working class who's building up the immunity that eventually will protect everybody. So the working class is having a double whammy, both in terms of COVID-19, which they are taking the burden of generating the immunity, but also in terms of the consequences of the lockdown on other aspects of public health, and also the school closings. Rich parents or middle-class parents can do higher tutorings or part schools or go put them in private schools. But the working-class children, they don't have those options. So they are the ones who are suffering the most from the closure of the public schools.
Yeah, the at-risk children around the country are suffering the most. But I can tell you, I have 3 children, and 2 of them are in person. One is kind of every 2 weeks on and off. And Dr. Gupta, I got to tell you, what's happening to the kids, I think, will go down as one of the most outrageous abuses of supposed science that we've ever seen I'd say in the last 50 years. Children are being kept from school with a 99.997 survival rate of anyone under the age of 19. It's insanity.
I would have to agree, and one again particularly thinks of disadvantaged children for whom providing an alternative to what school offers is very, very difficult. So I guess Martin's already said it. I mean, those who have the means can offer some form of alternative, although there is no alternative to the socializing and the learning experience of school. And it is, I agree, it's absolutely tragic. It's unconscionable that we're allowing the young, we're supposed to be, as a society, we're supposed to give everything to protect the young. And I know I've had mothers writing into me saying, you know, I would seal myself up for a year happily if my child could go to school, if my slightly older child could go to university and have the experience that they deserve. If that's not what we're for, then what are we here for?
What's the whole point of this? And Dr. Bhattacharya, the president thought it was very important to be on camera tonight after coming home to the White House from Walter Reed, and he recorded this video. Let's watch.
And I learned so much about coronavirus. And one thing that's for certain, don't let it dominate you. Don't be afraid of it. You're going to beat it. We have the best medical equipment. We have the best medicines, all developed recently. And you're going to beat it.
Okay, so the president comes out and speaks, and people went nuts. Like, how dare he? He's a vector of the disease. He's super spreading throughout the White House. He's doing a video. Like, how dare he be optimistic? How did he look, and what about the overall message? Dr. Bhattacharya.
Can I say about the overall message? That's exactly what I learned about public health, what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to sow panic. You're supposed to reassure, give accurate information about risks, trust people to make good judgments on their own behalf. The president did that, I think, tonight. Don't you think? I mean, I think obviously, like, he's has a real spirit to him, doesn't he? But I think that message is right. It is accurate and consistent with the data. The COVID is not a death sentence, and I think we've created this idea in the public mind that it is something so unique and so deadly that we should utterly end all normal existence as a result of it. That's not right. We can have a much better way. Protect the vulnerable, shield them for a short period of time until we reach a level where there's population immunity, and then for the rest of the world, let us live our lives. And for folks who are vulnerable, who, you know, if your life is meaningless without hugging your grandchildren, you know, you have to balance risks in everything we do in our life.
Doctors, all of you, I'm in awe of your expertise and your courage in speaking out, and all that you've published over the years, because I actually read a lot in the last 6 months. You're all brilliant, much smarter than most politicians. Thank you so much for joining us. And coming up, the left's reaction to Trump's Walter Reed stay, well, revealed that they just didn't want him to recover. I think